So I'll start out by saying that when I first started looking at this, it was for my elective here at the Army War College, where I was trying to bring in some journaling and some reflective practices for our students here. And as Alinda Johnson was one of the people that I talked to about it because I knew she was doing work in this area. And what was amazing was that as we were talking, the light bulb went on and I said, my goodness, my dissertation actually had to do with this in a way. So next slide. What my dissertation was on was the experience of developing as a leader. And so I had the opportunity to interview officers that were 06 through 09. So next slide. Basically, I was looking at trying to understand what it was that impacted their experience developing as a leader. And so the essence of leadership development I really saw was two very different aspects that fit together. And that was their environment that they were brought up in, and then the time, meaning that there are specific points in time, like professional military education, where we focus on developing leaders, and yet it really has to do with the continuum of development over the course of their careers. So whether it was just something prior to them entering service that really helped propel them to that leadership effort that they were doing, or it was something that happened at some point during their career, there were points where they realized that those were experiences that really helped them develop as a leader. And so that was the basis of the dissertation, was what was your experience as you were developing throughout your career, leaving it very open so that as they were reflecting on this experience, each person decided what they were going to pull out of it. What was it that stuck out the most to them? We did have a few people that, started with their ORB and basically went through every assignment they had and said, well, this I learned and this I learned. What was more amazing, though, most of them did not do that. There were a couple, but most of them really understood that there were points in time that meant a lot to them. They happened to reflect on it at that point in time, which is why it stuck harder with them. And then they were able to see how that was helping to propel them forward as they kept going through other things. So the two primary themes, the relationships, and then this compilation of events, the idea that you may have specific points that are very stimulating in your career as a leader developing, and yet at the same time, you can't just hold it to one or two events. It has to be over time. So next slide. These are the different structures that came out through these interviews. And so the thing I wanted to point out as to why I brought it back to this reflective practice was that the insight and the self-awareness were the two things that really stuck out to me the most. Every person that I interviewed really was aware. Like, they knew, this is why I made it to these levels. This is why I was able to be successful. But there were certain people who had that reflective quality that just seemed to understand it that much more as they were developing through their career, and not just saying, yeah, that was important to me. It was the fact that they somehow intrinsically felt like that was a part of my career developing. So next slide. This is just one of the quotes. As somebody that was able to say that it wasn't just these experiences, it was my self-awareness. It was the fact that I was able to learn all of these events, and then being able to realize how important that was to their career, and why it was so important to actually reflect on this during their career and bring that back into it. So that was the basis of what brought us together. Making sure that we had an opportunity to understand kind of where this kind of derives from, that this is something out there that is being looked at. It's this continuum of learning, but it's also having an application where we can then say, for those that maybe aren't as self-aware, here's a way that you can actually get better at it. And ideally that will help your leader development.